answers? I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
I woke up this morning, got myself a gun. Mama always said I'd be the chosen one.
What amount of death and destruction among the people of Texas or any other state is sufficient to say the state should take action under the law? Like, how much death should Texas take? How many Texans should die every day? Again, fentanyl, we've got 75,000 across the country, whatever the thousands are in Texas. How many of those should die every year before the state of Texas does something about it?
Well, of course, the state of Texas is trying to do something about it, but they're being blocked by the Biden administration. Those questions being raised by Texas Congressman Chip Roy. How many do we have to have die in our state before we put an end to our open border situation? And not just our state, but across the U.S. Solid question. But, of course, as far as the Biden administration, let them come. We'll deal with the consequences. They're not going to deal with the consequences. They're going to leave them on your back doorstep and coming out of funds for your children's school and health care and their future. Thank you for joining us. Here we are, Feb 1, 2024. This is the first of 2 hours of Larry Connors USA back-to-back for you. When we're on the air, we are streaming video. Now, we did have a problem yesterday, but it's corrected. So we're streaming video when we're on the air at News Talk STL, Facebook, Twitter, Rumble, YouTube, and at Larry Connors USA, Facebook, Rumble, Twitter. And if you miss anything, you simply go to LarryConnersUSA.com or Larry Connors USA Facebook. And everything is still showing there as a podcast, audio, or video, or both. And then when you watch or listen at your pleasure, then please also share to others. Make sure they're getting involved and hear this program. We fill this program with a lot of details. It's unlike any other. This is not to put any other program down. We're very precise about the guests we bring in, very incisive with our questions, and the pieces we are running for you, we're very detailed and back them up, give you sources so you can check them out. I don't want anyone to simply accept it because Larry Connors said it. That's not wise. You should always question sources. But the question that continues to baffle the Biden administration is what they're doing or not doing about the border. Now, they have, of course, through the House, passed a bill which would effectively shut it down. It's not going to make it to the Senate. We know that already. And the Senate is already trying to do their Mickey Mouse thing, run by Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell of the Republicans, helping them out, saying, well, we don't have to really give everything. We can kind of keep something going. As a proposal, let's say 5,000 illegals a day can come in. We're going to grant 5,000. If you're 5,001 that day, no, you wait till the next day. You'll be first in line for the next day. But we're going to let them in every day. That's 1 million plus in 1 year, in addition to what we've already got. And we're going to give some of them, if not all of them, at least at their age, a work permit so they can immediately go to work in the U.S. and come after your job, or actually jobs of minorities who are trying to find what they can, either landscaping, lawn maintenance, things of this nature. They don't have high skill, but they are good labor. And that means their wages are going to go down. They're going to be hurt. That is why so many in the minority community, especially Hispanic, do not like all this happening. For two reasons. One, they're going to come in and take jobs we already have and do it cheaper. Or two, they're going to probably settle in our neighborhood They're not going to go sit in the affluent areas out wherever they might be in a particular town or city. They're going to settle in the areas where they assimilate with like people, but they're not there necessarily to assimilate. They might be there to prey on them and hide out and commit crimes. Speaker Johnson for the House speaking on the floor yesterday.
A senior Border Patrol officer told us on that trip to Eagle Pass that if the Biden administration, if President Biden, by the stroke of a pen, would issue an executive order today to just simply reinstate remain in Mexico, they think that that would stop the flow by 70%, 70. One stroke of a pen by the president. He does not seem to care. I told President Biden this myself on multiple occasions, most recently a couple of weeks ago on the phone. I read him the law that says that he has all this authority, but he refuses to act. And that's even despite court orders, by the way, that instructed the administration to reinstitute remain in Mexico while the litigation was going on. You know what they did? They ignored it. The administration refused it.
So if they're going to be given a new order, a new law, and they're going to ignore it, this game is stupid. I mean, you want to play Monopoly, and yet you're not going to get any money to start buying any property, and you're getting nothing at all. You're just going to sit there and be humiliated. But in this case, it's more than humiliation. We've got lives at stake. And even the blue cities and blue states, they know how bad this is, but yet they're saying the quiet part out loud sometimes, but then they try to murmur and try to keep it a little tighter. But sometimes you just can't stand back and ignore it entirely. An example, New York City. Video had surfaced, and you probably have seen it. It was played again the other night. New York City Mayor Eric Adams was asked to react to it. This involves two police officers in the midst of some migrants, and for some reason they're going to arrest one of them. They're trying to take him down. He's fighting them. And then immediately other illegals, they want to call them migrants, I'm saying illegals, they come rushing to the aid of the man they're trying to arrest. They're kicking and hitting and attacking the officers. Thank goodness they were not severely hurt. But in New York, one of their TV channels was showing the video to the mayor and asked about this. The host said, what should New Yorkers make of the fact that most of the people involved in this attack are migrants? Now, again, I'm going to tell you, they're illegals, but they like the term migrant. The mayor answered, listen, I've been saying this over and over again. The national government, Joe Biden, the national government must do its job. This is not a responsibility that should be placed in the lap of these big cities. Well, then why is it also being placed in the lap of the small cities, especially those on the border? He said, what we're seeing taking place in Chicago and Denver and Boston, all across our country, big cities are having to do the national government's job. They did not care. May I remind you, these big cities did not give a D because it was not happening in their cities. Now it is, and now they say, yeah, the big government should be doing this, not us. They didn't care when the little cities and those along the border were experiencing it. And he continued saying, these migrants, which again, they're illegals, Mayor, they're illegals. These illegals are here because they want to be part of the American dream. Maybe some of them do. He said, that's why we say yes to that. But those who are breaking our laws, they broke our law when they entered our country illegally. They've already broken a law. But he goes on to say, those who broke our laws, we need to re-examine the laws that don't allow us to deport them because they're doing violent acts. So here's the mayor of New York City saying, yes, let's start deporting migrants, illegals who commit violent acts. It took something as simple as that attack on those two officers for him finally to make that statement. Thank God the officers were not severely hurt. I want to share with you a piece from Fox News. Brett Baer has Molly Hemingway of the Federalist on with him. But as this story begins, you're going to hear from Joe Biden again, talking about, I'm doing everything I can. BS.
Not all I can do. Just give me the power. I've asked for the very day I got in office. Give me the border patrol. Give me the people. Give me the people, the judges. Give me the people who can stop this and make it work right.
Now, this one seems pretty easy, Molly, because I've done all I can do. Yes, on day one, there were 94 executive orders that overturned all of the policies the Trump administration has in place. He hasn't done all he can do.
He's done all he can do to open the border, and all of these things were done through executive action or removal of policies that were put in place piece by piece over the course of the previous administration. He was very clear when he ran for office that he wanted to open up the border, and then he set about doing it on day one. And it wasn't like this border situation just happened. There took a lot of work into tearing down everything that was done in terms of our work with Mexico and having them make sure that they did what they could on their side of on the border. He's saying this because he wants to pretend that this bill is what he needs in order to, that he's passing the buck in terms of what has caused the problem. He has all the authority he needs right now. There is no need for a bill to give him more authority, particularly when he would just ignore it anyway.
Yeah, I'd ignore it anyway. All right, turning to another subject, big tech companies were facing tough questions about their standards or lack of, and how they knowingly jeopardize, damage our children.
Social media is a very powerful tool, but we're here because every parent I know, and I think every parent in America, is terrified about the garbage that is directed at our kids. I have 2 teenagers at home, and the phones they have are portals to predators, to viciousness, to bullying, to self-harm. And each of your companies could do a lot more to prevent it. Mr. Zuckerberg, in June of 2023, the Wall Street Journal reported that Instagram's recommendation systems were actively connecting pedophiles to accounts that were advertising the sale of child sexual abuse material. In many cases, those accounts appeared to be run by underage children themselves, often using code words and emojis to advertise illicit material. In other cases, the accounts included indicia that the victim was being sex trafficked.
That was Senator Ted Cruz going after Mark Zuckerberg. Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri also took a shot at him on an issue dealing with the mental health issues.
Mr. Zuckerberg, let me start with you. Did I hear you say in your opening statement that there's no link between mental health and social media use?
Senator, what I said is I think it's important to look at the science. I know it's people widely talk about this as if that is something that's already been proven. And I think that the bulk of the scientific evidence does not support that.
Well, really, let me just remind you of some of the science from your own company. Instagram studied the effect of your platform on teenagers. Let me just read you some quotes from the Wall Street Journal's report on this. Company researchers found that Instagram is harmful for a sizable percentage of teenagers, most notably teenage girls. Here's a quote from your own study. Quote, "We make body image issues worse for 1 in 3 teen girls." Here's another quote. Teens blamed Instagram, this is your study, for increases in the rate of anxiety and depression. This reaction was unprompted and consistent across all groups. That's your study.
Your study showing that. Back to Senator Ted Cruz dealing with, you have no real guardrails to protect children from pedophiles.
But what was particularly concerning about the Wall Street Journal expose was the degree to which Instagram's own algorithm was promoting the discoverability of victims for pedophiles seeking child abuse material. In other words, this material wasn't just living on the dark corners of Instagram. Instagram was helping pedophiles find it by promoting graphic hashtags, including hashtag pedwhore and hashtag preteen sex, to potential buyers. Instagram also displayed the following warning screen to individuals who were searching for child abuse material. These results may contain images of child sexual abuse. And then you gave users two choices: get resources or see results anyway. Mr. Zuckerberg, what the hell were you thinking?
Perfect question. And there was no real answer to it. I want to go back to Senator Josh Hawley, and he was referring to a whistleblower, the information he had presented to the congressmen and senators.
Here's some information from a whistleblower who came before the Senate and testified under oath in public. He worked for you. It's a senior executive. Here's what he showed he found when he studied your products. So, for example, this is girls between the ages of 13 and 15 years old. 37% of them reported that they had been exposed to nudity on the platform unwanted in the last 7 days. 24% said that they had experienced unwanted sexual advances they'd been propositioned in the last 7 days. 17% said they had encountered self-harm content pushed at them in the last 7 days. Now, I know you're familiar with these stats because he sent you an email where he lined it all out. I mean, we've got a copy of it right here. My question is, who did you fire for this?
Oh, that is a big question. We're going to get more into that question the next hour, but there's another thing I want to get to right now, because Josh Hawley got Zuckerberg to do something in the chambers. The audience is packed with parents who have pictures of their children they're holding up. This is my child. Look at her. She's so innocent, sweet, and you people got her connected to pedophiles or things of that nature. Listen to what Josh Hawley says to Zuckerberg, and he actually does it.
Let me ask you this. There's families of victims here today. Have you apologized to the victims? Would you like to do so now?
Well,
they're here. You're on national television. Would you like now to apologize to the victims who have been harmed by your product? Show them the pictures. Would you like to apologize for what you've done to these good people?
I'm sorry for everything that you have all gone through. It's terrible. No one should have to go through the things that your families have suffered. And this is why we invest so much and are going to continue doing industry-leading efforts to make sure that no one has to go through the types of things that your families have had to suffer.
That was an amazing event to have Zuckerberg stand facing the audience and apologize. But it was just words. Because then the other question is, do you think they should be compensated? Maybe out of your own pocket. Oh, we got more on this coming up in the next hour. Also, some striking, shocking numbers from a teenager over pay for teachers and staff despite students not really learning. She put it together and she shocked the students, or rather the school board, when she appeared. Also, later in this hour, Joe Rogan on his podcast says, all you leftists, I'm watching what you've been doing, what you're doing now. I'm out of here. That'll be coming up later in this hour. Also up next, Disney losing its battle against the state of Florida so far, because they didn't like the parental rights bill passed in Florida. Lock and load. Ready. On the right.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
Pigeons, they are everywhere, and they're very good at dive bombing freshly washed cars. Wellington Environmental reminds you those droppings are more than a nuisance. They can be a major health issue, especially massive droppings on buildings or in parking garages. So who do you call to safely clean it up? You do what many hospitals, universities, public buildings already do. You call Wellington Environmental. Wellington Environmental has been dealing with all kinds of hazards for 35 years. Special people, special skills, special equipment. Wellington gets it done. So to avoid health issues ranging from pigeon droppings to mold to chemical leaks, contact Wellington. 314-644-4930. 644-4930. WellingtonSTL.com. Wellington Environmental, your world cleaner, better, safer. Be well with Wellington.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
Horace, Americans individually have lost over $4,000 in income and over $7,000 where you have a household with both parents working.
It shouldn't be, it's the economy stupid. We should just say, stupid! It's the economy. Unbelievable the devastation that Americans are feeling.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps. Weekdays at 3:30 on News Talk STL.
What if everything you thought and believed to be true about owning and buying your home turned out to be wrong?
Straightforward, objective advice on the right way to make the most out of every dollar you put into your home.
We're the only country that has one of those. Most other countries, considering like Canada, the UK, they don't have long-term fixed-rate mortgages like that. They're all variable rate mortgages.
HomeWise with Michael Midget. Sunday mornings at 9 on News Talk STL.
Great news for my sponsor, Napoli Sea. And it's no surprise to me nor hundreds who have dined there. The first time I entered, it was clear Napoli Sea is unique. The decor, the fish, imaginative cocktails, and of course Napoli Sea is right next door to Napoli 3 in St. Charles. Napoli 2 is in Town and Country. The original Cafe Napoli is in Clayton, and I'm honored to endorse each of them. Visit any of the Cafe Napolis.
This is News Talk STL.
Never would have hitchhiked to Birmingham if it hadn't been for love. Never would have called the train to Louisiana if it hadn't been for love. Never would have run through the blinding rain without $1 to my name if it hadn't been for love. Never would have seen the trouble that I'm in if it hadn't been for love.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Welcome back. My guest we've had on numerous times before, and he's just done an excellent article involving the Disney lawsuit that got tossed by a federal judge based on lack of standing. So that doesn't mean it's necessarily fully decided, but it is a win for the state of Florida right now, as Disney was upset because of the parental bill that got passed in the state, and then they were trying to take the state of Florida and the governor to task and everything else. And here to break it down for us, Sean Fleetwood with the Federalist. Sean, welcome aboard again.
It's good to be back. Thanks so much for having me.
You bet. So, again, I want to make it clear that the issue, Disney was suing DeSantis and Florida's Secretary of Commerce because they wanted to restructure some of the improvement district that Disney supposedly was going to have control over. And at the heart of it, they were really just PO'd at DeSantis in his push for parental rights in the state.
Right. So basically the judge said they did not have, as you indicated at the beginning, that Disney did not have standing to sue Governor DeSantis or Florida's Commerce Secretary. And he also noted that they didn't have any merits. There was no merits for them to even, file this lawsuit which essentially they were claiming that this law that was passed by the Florida legislature and signed into law by DeSantis was a retaliation against Disney's First Amendment rights, and that the passage of this law would essentially suppress their rights. But as noted by the district judge in this case, there's no evidence to suggest that, because the law that was passed by the legislature and that was signed by DeSantis is perfectly constitutional, and there's no unconstitutional mechanism in the law that would suppress Disney's ability to speak freely. So,
what was Disney claiming? How were their rights being suppressed by that?
They basically were saying that this law was purely retaliation, and that in passing it, that it was retaliating against them speaking freely and expressing their.
Well, speaking freely is we're going to have all of our characters change to gay outfits and have a whole gay theme at the park, where Walt Disney probably rolling over in his grave.
Yeah, exactly. But something else that the judge noted in his ruling was that the law specifically deals with the Reedy, now formerly known Reedy Creek Improvement District, and restructuring how that board operates. It does not restructure having anything to do with Disney whatsoever. Granted, Disney has influence with the district's board, but that doesn't mean that they're governing the board itself. That doesn't mean that they're enacting laws or regulations throughout the district. the law specifically deals with the district governing entity itself. So any claims that Disney has that, DeSantis' appointees would, allow the governor to have influence and, control what the district does, the judge just cast that aside and dismissed that. They said there's no evidence of that whatsoever. So the idea that Disney had any standing for this, to bring this suit in the first place, now confirmed with this ruling, just completely ludicrous that they even made this claim to begin with.
Let's go back in history because it was all swampland. Disney came in, Disney Company, Walt Disney at that time still helping head it up, and said, we're going to create a Disneyland here like we have in California, only we're going to take over all this basic useless land and we're going to turn it into a viable opportunity and for the economy and everything else. And it was a grand plan, grand idea, and the state basically let them take over the land so that 27,000 acres was going to be, quote, under the control of Disney, correct?
Correct. Yeah, it was enacted in, I believe it was 1967, the Reedy Creek Improvement Act, I believe it was called, essentially to help Disney, as you said, improve economically, essentially build up their business and improve the area, create jobs for people. But now, as we've seen, they've kind of taken advantage of that and, really used it to expand their business. And, everyone's for free capitalism and everything like that. But, as indicated, a couple months ago, last year, when this law was enacted, rather, the Reedy Creek Improvement District essentially made a last-minute maneuver where they ceded all of their governing authority to Disney. Essentially, it was a move to, take away any power or authority that these new DeSantis appointees on the oversight board would have. And so, in response to that, that's what prompted DeSantis to say, "Okay, this looks very shady. It looks like you guys skipped a lot of you guys look like you skipped a lot of legal steps to make that resolution go through. So we're going to launch an investigation." And it wasn't long after that, at which point Disney decided to file their lawsuit.
And therefore, they were trying to create Disney as a separate state inside the state of Florida.
Right, yeah.
And they felt they were not beholden to parental rights or anything else the governor wanted to sign on.
Yeah, I mean, they basically acted as a local operating government within the state for decades. And this law essentially just brings more oversight and accountability, allowing the state to have more oversight of what exactly the district is doing and allow the governor to make appointments to the district's board, bringing more transparency. And, of course, Disney didn't want that. This is the same company that lashed out and called the Parental Rights in Education Bill, which prevents educators, public school officials from talking to little kids in kindergarten through third grade on subjects such as sexual orientation, so-called gender identity, a very benign law. But of course, they just couldn't help themselves, and they had to lash out and have gone completely left-wing, as you indicated earlier.
And they've got the opportunity. They've got children right in front of them. Joyful to be, and we've had over the years Super Bowl champs or whatever. Where are you going? I'm going to Disneyland, Disney World. I mean, it's all exciting, and so the kids are there, and it's a perfect opportunity to prey on them and push gender identity questions, and you begin to change some of the characters that have long been associated with Disney to dealing with pronouns as opposed to just be fun for the kids.
Yeah, I mean, growing up for me, I'm not that old, but, when I was a kid, Disney was, the big thing. Everyone was excited. What's the next Disney movie coming out? Right. When I was in high school, my friends and I, it was our thing to go and watch the Marvel movies together. That was, something we all enjoyed doing together. But now you look at the content that they're putting out, and if it's not remakes that are, quote unquote, reimagined with, different characters and, pushing, diversity and equity and inclusion and all these leftist terms, it's just not the same anywhere close to what it was, when Walt Disney was back then, or even 10 years ago. They were putting out really great projects, really great pieces of art that, we could go and watch and escape from reality with. But now everything is just about pushing this leftist social agenda.
And you write in this, we're listening to Sean Fleetwood, a writer for The Federalist. You write in here at one point, the parental rights bill, prevents educators from instructing children in kindergarten through third grade on sexual orientation and so-called gender identity, bending the knee to Democrats and their media allies who maliciously label the law as "don't say gay," which it never says those words, "don't say gay law." Then Disney CEO Bob Chapek parroted the leftist lies that the law could be used to target LGBTQ kids, and saying the company would be reassessing its approach to advocacy, including political giving in Florida and beyond. In other words, extortion against Florida. You will keep that. We'll just pull up. So go.
Yeah, and I would just note that, you really look at the political advocacy of Disney and how it's really has hurt them as a company and as a brand. I mean, you go back let's go to 2019. That's when you had Avengers Endgame, right? This great cinematic masterpiece, made the most money of any movie in cinematic history. They're putting out great projects like Frozen 2, making all this money. And now you look at the projects they're putting out today and they're barely getting any money. I mean, The Marvels, which was their latest Marvel movie that came out a couple months ago, was the lowest, box office hit of any Marvel movie that they put out in history. It was supposed to be this female-led, girl empowerment film, and it just completely flopped. And all of their latest Pixar projects have flopped. So they're hurting financially at the box office. They're hurting with Disney Plus subscribers, which is why I think you're seeing the company sort of refocus, saying, okay, we need to really build up our park attendance. That's what we need to focus on, rather than just acknowledging the problem with the company, which is you're driving away your core audience.
Absolutely. I find it interesting you say they were about a movie about empowering women. Well, how can a woman be empowered against a transgender? I mean, but
what is a woman?
yeah, right. But here's the issue. And I haven't seen any of these latest movies or anything. I could care less. I don't have kids right now, but I care for those who do. Have you actually seen them? Have they begun to realize, even though we're suffering, we are going to start trying to restructure and go back to the basic stuff? And they're still losing because they've distorted the brand so much like Bud Light, that I don't care what you do with it now. I'm not interested anymore. I'm done.
Yeah, I mean, it really is just an amazing act of corporate suicide. I mean, as a company, that they were just riding high, that they were making billions. They were the most successful entertainment company in the world. And on the flip of a dime, they decided they wanted to get politically active, bending the knee to these radical leftists within the company, political activists. And they just completely have self-destructed as a company. And it's kind of, sad for the people who, worked there and who didn't want to engage in any of that, because now they're suffering, losing jobs and stuff like that. But I mean, just to see this is just a truly remarkable thing. And they're not even pivoting. They're not even going away from it. They're continuing to embrace it over and over and over again. My friend I was visiting in Florida back in September, he wanted to go to Hollywood Studios, and I begrudgingly went along with him. And there was this wall up that had a rainbow, colored, trans flag colored, Mickey Mouse ears that people could take a picture with. And that's in the park itself, and that's just one part of it. So they're continuing to embrace it, and they just don't seem to grasp that what they're doing is destroying the brand that they've spent decades cultivating. Yeah.
So the days of Disney, as you wrote at one point, is that the corporate kingdom is over. Sean Fleetwood, thank you very much for your time, sir.
Thanks so much, sir. God bless.
You bet. God bless. And coming up a little bit later, Joe Rogan's take on moving away from the left. More to come. You do not want to go anywhere. Please stand by.
You can connect with Larry on Twitter at LarryConnersUSA.
I got an email which brought a smile. A woman named Mary wrote me, "We are purchasing a new roof from John Beal based on your recommendation." I thanked her then. I do it again now. Mary, I only endorse clients I believe in, and I've been a spokesman for John Beal for 10 years. It's all about trust. So if, like Mary, you need John Beal, trust me. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF, 1-800-NEW-ROOF.
The United States Deputy Sheriff's Association is a national nonprofit and the largest non-governmental provider of services to law enforcement. The USDSA assists city, county, state, and federal agencies with free safety equipment donations and officer survival training, along with cash donations to families of law enforcement officers who perished in the line of duty, a citizen awareness program, and more. For more information on United States Deputy Sheriff's Association, please visit usdeputy.org.
I like supporting local companies that give back to the community. For more than 40 years, Vincent's Jewelers has helped raise more than $1.5 million for local charities. So I'm personally asking that when you're shopping for jewelry, give Vincent's a chance. And in turn, Vincent's will give even more to our community. On Olive, just east of 270. New specials every day on Vincent'sJewelers.com or Vincent's Facebook.
News, analysis, opinion.
USA, USA. That's a big game, man.
President Xi's really losing control.
People in China didn't ask me about people mowing each other down in a mall.
This is News Talk STL.
It is their responsibility.
Hate is a metastasizing agent.
We're all keeping a close eye on this.
Illegal immigration is crazy right now.
This United States is not being overrun.
News Talk STL.
It is a crisis at the border without question.
At newstalkstl.com.
Planning a move? I encourage you to call McGuire Moving. And they not only do moving, they can provide you portable storage. They'll bring a storage container to you. You fill it at your time and convenience. They'll pick it up, move it where you want it. Here's their phone number, 314-241-0600. 241-0600. Website, McGuireMoving.com. McGuireMoving.com. Locally owned.
This is News Talk STL.
Very superstitious, writings on the wall. Very superstitious, letters about to fall.
This is Larry Connors USA.
Larry Connors USA.
We begin our report with an American warship fighting off attacks in the Middle East. The USS Carney shot down a ballistic missile and several drones on Wednesday. That's according to a U.S. official who blamed Iranian-backed Houthis for the strikes. This would be the Houthis' 38th attack on ships of all kinds in the Red Sea since mid-November.
In Yemen today, a Houthi anti-aircraft missile targeted American patrol aircraft. The missile, which was in firing position, was destroyed by the U.S. military, according to the Pentagon.
Folks that need to show restraint are these groups that Iran backs.
Groups like the one that killed 3 Americans earlier this week.
Yeah. They continue to fire their missiles, and what are we doing? Well, so far, there is something happening, and I'm going to share it with you in a moment, and you're going to say, what? What? Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin is back on the JLB directly, and he held a news conference earlier today, and he wanted to begin with dealing with our 3 troops we lost at Tower 22.
It's been a difficult few days for the Department of Defense, and the entire department is united in our outrage and sorrow over the death of 3 U.S. service members on Sunday in Jordan. We all mourn the loss of 3 Army Reserve soldiers serving at Tower 22.
And that's appreciated. And he went on to talk about them and their families and those who have had those troops injured and their families, and all of them who are in danger zones right now. And then he talked about President Biden and his resolve as to doing, well, you'll have to listen.
The president will not tolerate attacks on American troops, and neither will I. Our teammates were killed by radical militias backed by Iran and operating inside Syria and Iraq. In the aftermath of the vile Hamas terrorist assault on Israel on October 7th, terrorist groups backed by Iran and funded by Iran have tried to create even more turmoil, including the Houthis, attacking commercial shipping in the Red Sea. So this is a dangerous moment in the Middle East. We will continue to work to avoid a wider conflict in the region. But we will take all necessary actions to defend the United States, our interests, and our people.
I'd like to know what they've done to shore up defenses at Tower 22 because, according to the White House, they admit, well, that location had not been properly protected because they'd never been attacked before. Strategic military advice for you? Just because they haven't been attacked before and you don't shore them up makes them one of the prime targets to attack the next time. And he says Biden will do everything. Look, we're waiting to see, and I don't want to telegraph to the enemy what's going to happen. I am against that. But you know who Biden is taking some immediate action on? This is one of those, when I read this, if you're driving, please do not lose control of your car. Don't suddenly have a heart attack on me either. President Biden is issuing an executive order targeting violence in the West Bank. He's going to target Israeli settlers in the West Bank. He said they are undermining stability in the area. The new directive will impose sanctions on several individuals, Israelis, accused of having participated in violent acts inside the West Bank. The names will be announced later, and they're also going to do everything they can to shut off any money and funding they might get from any Americans, and any Americans giving them money would also be under suspect. Now, this targeting Israelis in the West Bank. If they're upset in the West Bank, why do you think they're upset? Am I in favor of the violence they're carrying out? I don't know exactly what they're doing, but the attention of the president is directed at 4, maybe 8 West Bank settlers who are Israelis. Now, last December, Secretary of State Blinken had made a remark. It kind of got lost in the mix of everything at that point. But he said, extremist Israeli settlers are responsible for violence in the West Bank, so therefore we're going to put in rules. They cannot come to the U.S. Well, we do have a rule to keep people out of the U.S. if they're Jewish and in the West Bank and identified as a violent Jew inside the West Bank. You can be a violent person of any religion in the Middle East. Come on in. The door's open. You're not going to find any kind of common sense here. You're not going to find any way you could explain it and say, well, maybe it means this, it means that. I'm looking at directly. Biden is going to go after Israeli settlers that they consider creating violence and havoc inside the West Bank. Says nothing about going after Houthi rebels, although he supposedly will do that, nor against Hamas, supposedly will help do some of that. And maybe against Iran, we'll wait and see, Hezbollah. There are about 700,000 Israeli settlers in the West Bank. It's not clear which specific numbers Biden is targeting, but he sits down and has time to write an executive order to go after the Jews in the West Bank because they're acting up. Good Lord, what are we doing here? What are we doing? The answer is nothing. We are dealing with stupidity at the highest level. Every time I think we could not do something more stupid, we have this example in front of us. I told you, of course, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin did come back. He did address reporters, and he also took time to acknowledge, my bad.
But I want to be crystal clear. We did not handle this right, and I did not handle this right. I should have told the president about my cancer diagnosis. I should have also told my team and the American public. And I take full responsibility. I apologize to my teammates and to the American people. Now, I want to make it very clear that there were no gaps in authorities and no risk to the department's command and control. At every moment, either I or the Deputy Secretary was in full charge.
Really? Really? Well, actually, the deputy secretary didn't even know you were in the hospital for a day. And you were not in position to be in charge. And she didn't know she was supposed to be in charge. And you hadn't even told the president for another 2 days after that, or members of your own defense council, Joint Chiefs of Staff, and members of Congress for a day after that. And yet we're supposed to believe that nothing slipped by us. We're on top of everything. You know, I have seen a lot of cattle in the fields of West Texas and East Texas and South and North. And there's always one thing I can guarantee you. If you go out to check on those cattle, you don't watch where you're stepping. You're going to step in a big heap of stinking. And that's what I'm getting from this presentation from General Lloyd Austin. When he tells us to reassure us nothing was missed, everything was done right. I made a mistake not telling everybody. That's my bad. Yes, it is your bad. But I'm not buying the lie that everything was going the way it should, because no one knew where the hell you were. How could it go the way it was supposed to go? This is the example of what the left is trying to prop up as good leadership and should continue. You don't like Trump? Fine. Do you like this kind of nonsense? This idiocy? Well, Joe Rogan says, I've always been a lefty. I've always supported left candidates. Maybe I'm a little bit more libertarian when it comes to economic issues, but basically I'm a life in politics on the left side. But what I'm seeing now, we're going to hear directly from Joe Rogan when we continue.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
You want to give someone something which they will really enjoy? Give them a Cafe Napoli gift card. You pick the amount, and they pick which of the Cafe Napolis they want to visit. Cafe Napoli in Clayton, Cafe Napoli in Town and Country, Napoli 3 on the streets of St. Charles, or right next door, Napoli C. The Napoli gift card. It's the perfect gift for anyone, or your entire office. Cafe Napoli. Cafe Napoli.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
I was 100% a left-leaning person who lived in Los Angeles. I was 100%. I never voted Republican my whole life. I was very left-leaning, especially with like any social issues. When it comes to financial things, I'm a little bit more conservative, but at the end of the day, I'm way more left than I am right. But California went nuts, man. It's gone like full communist. It's out of its mind. And their approach to law enforcement is so insane. It's so insane. The no cash bail, the letting people out for committing violent crimes.
And he went on and on. That's Joe Rogan on his podcast, saying to the leftists, I'm out of here. Let me share something else with you. Recently, there was a D.C. rally by radical leftists. There are folks on the left, Democrats, that do not think the way some of these idiots do. And they are good, solid, patriotic Americans. But they are also responsible for quelling their side and straightening it out, and I don't see them doing it. And your silence is granting them permission to continue. But anyway, a bunch of them rallied, trying to intimidate staff at the Heritage Foundation. They were in front of the main office on Heritage Foundation, where they are working on Project 25, a plan to staff a prospective Republican administration and counter all the leftist attitudes in our government. One of the activists speaking at the rally this last weekend captured on video threatening to harass Federalist staffers at their homes and churches and stated, we need to go and find out where they live and where they go to church, who they hang out with, and bird dog they asses. And the crowd, yeah! That sounds like a call for violence and insurrection. Oh, that's right. It's on the left. Same thing happened, of course, when Trump was in office, and they were told and encouraged by Texas Congresswoman Lee that you see them sitting having dinner somewhere, you go up and you get in their face and say, you're not welcome here. And they did that to Sarah Huckabee Sanders, chasing her and her family out of a diner when they're just trying to enjoy a meal together. The group included several radical organizations such as the Center for Popular Democracy, Human Rights Campaign, CPD Action, Vocal New York, Rise and Resist. Organizers typically used, of course, leftist inflammatory language, pointing to an Instagram post by one of the organizers. Our message, no day one dictator. That's reference Trump says, I want to be a dictator for one day. By executive order, I'm going to cancel a lot of this stuff that Joe Biden has done. Well, of course, they don't want him in. They're going to do everything they can to stop it. One said the purpose is to bring public and media attention to the threat to U.S. democracy that the Heritage Foundation represents. I would guarantee you half of the people in their crowd could not spell foundation. I doubt they could spell heritage. I want to share something with you. A good friend of mine, a listener from Arizona, sent this to me. I don't know if the numbers are accurate. I didn't bother to do the ciphering, but I found it enlightening. Let me share it to you. And again, my caution, I don't know if the numbers would actually equate to what we're looking at as I go through it, but I'm just going to read it for fun. And I encourage you to listen just for fun. If you have a point of contention, raise it at some point. But he said, every time you hear the word billion from politicians mentioned in such a casual manner, you wonder, are they thinking about my money when they say billion? Well, of course they are. And he points to apparently an advertising agency actually did the job of putting this together, but the ad agency is not cited, so I can't give it to you. Here's the perspective. One of them, 1 billion seconds. Now, think about 1 billion seconds. 1 billion seconds ago would take you back to 1959. Oh, that's a different perspective, isn't it? 1 billion minutes ago, Jesus was alive. So 1 billion seconds ago is 1959. 1 billion minutes ago, Jesus was alive. 1 billion hours ago, our ancestors were living in the Stone Age. That billion number, you get a better perspective on it, don't you? It's hard to understand $1 billion, but when you start putting into something like this, my God, here we are, 2024, and 1 billion seconds ago would take us back to 1959? Or would 1 billion minutes ago, Jesus would be alive? It also adds 1 billion days ago, no one walked on the earth on 2 feet. That's 1 billion days ago. $1 billion ago, $1 billion ago was only 8 hours and 20 minutes at the rate our government is spending it. Oh, my God. I got some more I want to share from this with you in the second hour. And we're going to get back into Cruz and Senator Hawley going after these tech giants who think they know what's best for you and your kids. We got a lot to cover, and you're going to hear from a teenager at a school board meeting calling them out. They don't like it. Tough luck. Please stay with us. And remember our pledge, one nation under God.
You can hear podcast of this program at Larry Connors USA Facebook. Larry Connors USA Facebook.
News, analysis, opinion.
USA, USA. That's a big game, man.
President Xi is really losing control.
People in China didn't ask me about people mowing each other down in a mall.
This is News Talk STL.
It is their responsibility.
Hate is a metastasizing agent.
We're all keeping a close eye on this.
Illegal immigration is crazy right now.
This United States is not being overrun.
News Talk STL.
It is a crisis at the border without question.
And NewsTalkSTL.com. Talk radio made in St. Louis.
Very excited for what you guys are doing for the St. Louis community.
For St. Louis.
Relevant local talk.
Saying what we are thinking.
This is News Talk STL.
You guys are awesome. I love you. And it's a tremendous honor to be on the station.
News, analysis, and opinion.
Thanks for covering the local angle.
People, this is America.
We better open our eyes.
Really local, really good.
News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1 and NewsTalkSTL.com.
Are you thinking about buying medicine online? A search for online pharmacies yields more than 20 million results. But which ones can you trust? Medicines bought from unlicensed online pharmacies can be dangerous. You may get a fake drug, your condition may get worse, or you may experience a bad reaction. Don't put your health at risk. To learn how to find an online pharmacy that's safe and legal, visit fda.gov/BeSafeRx. A message from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration.
Tony Colombo here, reminding you to join us for the Bluff City Outdoors radio show and podcast, where we talk fishing, hunting, camping, and everything else involving the great outdoors. Brought to you by Bluff City Outdoors in Alton. The Bluff City Outdoors Show, Saturdays at 11 a.m. right here on News Talk STL.
No matter how large or small your digging project may be, no matter how urban or rural, you must always call 811 before any digging project. 811 is our national one-call number, alerting your local utility companies to come out and mark any lines they have near your dig site. So before you do this or this, make sure you do this. For digging projects big or small, make the call to 811. Brought to you by Common Ground Alliance.
Hey, it's Katie, reminding you to subscribe to our show podcast so you never miss anything that happens here at News Talk STL. Get our podcasts every day on the show pages at newstalkstl.com, or just subscribe to your favorite shows on Spotify, Apple, Google, Amazon, or anywhere else you get your podcasts.
I drive my bus in a busy city. That's why road safety is so important to me. I know that I must slow down and be extra careful when I make a wide turn. Buses need more room than cars. Everyone can help keep our roads safe. Next time you're driving, remember to give buses plenty of time and space to finish turning before driving ahead. Let's all plan to share the road safely. Learn how at www.sharetheroadsafely.gov.
So many ways to listen to News Talk STL.
Come join the conversation. All you have to do is say,
Hey Alexa, play News Talk STL.
Welcome to News Talk STL, conservative talk radio for St. Louis.
What if everything you thought and believed to be true about owning and buying your home turned out to be wrong?
Straightforward, objective advice on the right way to make the most out of every dollar you put into your home.
We're the only country that has one of those. Most other countries, considering like Canada, the UK, they don't have long-term fixed-rate mortgages like that. They're all variable rate mortgages.
HomeWise with Michael Midget, Sunday mornings at 9 on News Talk STL. If you find yourself feeling out of place in the world, it's comforting to know conservative values haven't been abandoned everywhere.
The far left wants to destroy conservative values in America.
This is News Talk STL. Welcome home.
Hey, it's Nick Schroer. To preserve this nation, to preserve the experiment in liberty that our founders envisioned, we must take a stand and fight. Join me Sunday nights at 8 p.m. only on News Talk STL.
Stand and fight with Nick Schroer. Brought to you by Missouri Wild Alchemy at MissouriWild.com. This is News Talk STL.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
I woke up this morning, got myself a gun. Mama always said I'd be the chosen one.
Mr. Zuckerberg, let me start with you. Did I hear you say in your opening statement that there's no link between mental health and social media use?
Senator, what I said is I think it's important to look at the science. I know people widely talk about this as if that is something that's already been proven. And I think that the bulk of the scientific evidence does not support that.
Well, really, let me just remind you of some of the science from your own company. Instagram studied the effect of your platform on teenagers. Let me just read you some quotes from the Wall Street Journal's report on this. Company researchers found that Instagram is harmful for a sizable percentage of teenagers, most notably teenage girls. Here's a quote from your own study. Quote, "We make body image issues worse for 1 in 3 teen girls." Here's another quote. "Teens blamed Instagram," this is your study, "for increases in the rate of anxiety and depression. This reaction was unprompted and consistent across all groups." That's your study.
That's your study. What do you have to say there? Well, we're just getting started. It was quite a show yesterday, and we had so many other things going on, didn't have time to focus on it, but I made time for it today because we had the heads of Facebook, TikTok, others all appearing in front of the Senate hearing and being grilled extensively about what are you doing to our children, much less what you're doing to the rest of the nation and the world. The answers they're going to be giving, which you'll hear in a minute, you could expect that it's going to be evasive, but it's also going to be damning, even they would have to recognize it is. I wonder what happened after everything yesterday when they went back with their lawyers and got out of that room and, oh, my God, I'm glad that's over. But then they started looking at how else can we ramp up and still stay in control, because that's what it's all about, control. They control if you're going to get your piece put up on their site, and they control what you're going to say or not be allowed to say. And this is not going to stop until we actually have a hard line against them, because right now they're getting a pass. When they were originally established, they wanted protection from lawsuits, because if it's an open forum like Facebook or TikTok, whatever you put up there, they don't know how accurate or true it is. They're not questioning it for accuracy. Unless they know you're a Trump supporter. Then they still may not check it for accuracy. They just automatically put a block on it. So they want protection. That's just different than a newspaper, because what they put in there, they know what they're putting in. No one can suddenly, well, I guess they could hack in, but they don't sneak in and get something into the machine that it prints out on the paper and never should have been there. That doesn't happen. And on radio or TV, we're responsible for our content. Now, if I'm having callers, and the only reason I don't have callers on this program is because we're loaded every day. I don't have time to go off in areas and have deeper discussions, or maybe good discussions, been some maybe inane by some folks who aren't quite informed. Not knocking it, I'm just saying that's not my style. I want to tell you a story, and I want to give you supplying evidence for you that would back it up or detract from it. And then you make some judgments. You are a thinking public, and that's why I love this audience. I see it all the time in some of the comments. You can always write to me at LarryConnersUSA@gmail.com, or you can post comments on some of the streams we put up. All right, let me set the stage again. Here we are, Feb 1, 2024. This is the second hour of 2 of Larry Conners USA. Sorry if you missed the first one, but I got an option for you in a minute. When we're on the air, we're also streaming video. It's available at Larry Conners USA, Facebook, Twitter, Rumble, or News Talk STL, Facebook, Rumble, Twitter, and YouTube. Yeah, the station got back on YouTube. I haven't, but in a way I am. So you can always go back and pull something up if you miss it, and I encourage you to do it. And then I encourage you to share it. Send it on to someone else so they can get involved. We have listeners way beyond the reach of our signals. We got 2 great FM signals, but Our listeners are all over the nation, and some even out of Europe. And occasionally I'll get some out of Asia. So we encourage you to take part and join in. And every day we work hard to present a solid program for you. So you heard Missouri Senator Hawley questioning Zuckerberg about your own studies were showing how you're damaging children. Your own study. Well, let's pick up with that issue again.
Senator, we try to understand the feedback and how people feel about the services. We can improve.
Wait a minute. Your own study says that you make life worse for 1 in 3 teenage girls. You increase anxiety and depression. That's what it says. And you're here testifying to us in public that there's no link. You've been doing this for years. For years, you've been coming in public and testifying under oath that there's absolutely no link. Your product is wonderful. The science is nascent, full speed ahead, while internally you know full well your product is a disaster for teenagers.
Senator,
and yet you keep right on doing what you're doing. Right?
That's not true. That's not true.
Not true, of course. That applause you were hearing, that was some of the audience in the crowd because a lot of parents were there. They wanted to hear how Zuckerberg was going to be responding, along with the TikTok chief and others, as to how they're going to respond to the criticism, which they simply they ignore it, and yet they did their own survey, as he was pointing out. Your own survey says that you're basically shaming children, young girls in particular, making them feel like I'm not as good as I should be because of what's going on Facebook or other social media, Instagram. And Senator Hawley was doing his bit with Zuckerberg, and also he then turned to a source that Zuckerberg had to know on one hand this was coming. And when you hear the source and Zuckerberg's reaction, it's as if, wow, I did not see that coming.
Here's some information from a whistleblower who came before the Senate, testified under oath in public. He worked for you. It's a senior executive. Here's what he found when he studied your products. So, for example, this is girls between the ages of 13 and 15 years old. 37% of them reported that they had been exposed to nudity on the platform unwanted in the last 7 days. 24% said that they had experienced unwanted sexual advances they'd been propositioned in the last 7 days. 17% said they had encountered self-harm content pushed at them in the last 7 days. Now, I know you're familiar with these stats because he sent you an email where he lined it all out. I mean, we've got a copy of it right here. My question is, who did you fire for this?
Who did you fire? When you get a memo from one of your own CEOs and they had a copy of the email they put up on a board for everyone to see, the question again was, who did you fire? Well, let's see what answer comes with that.
My question is, who did you fire for this? Who got fired because of that?
Senator, we study all of this because it's important and we want to improve our services.
Well, you just told me a second ago you studied it, that there was no linkage. Who did you fire?
Yeah, I said you mischaracterized.
37% of teenage girls between 13 and 15 were exposed to unwanted nudity in a week on Instagram. You knew about it. Who did you fire?
Senator, this is why we're building all
Who did you fire?
Tools. Senator, I don't think that's...
Who did you fire?
I'm not going to answer that.
Because you didn't fire anybody, right? You didn't take any significant action.
It's appropriate to talk about
it's not appropriate.
HR decisions.
Do you know who's sitting behind you? You've got families from across the nation whose children are either severely harmed or gone. And you don't think it's appropriate to talk about steps that you took? The fact that you didn't fire a single person? Let me ask you this. Have you compensated any of the victims?
Sorry?
Have you compensated any of the victims? These girls, have you compensated them?
I don't believe so.
Why not? Don't you think they deserve some compensation for what your platform has done? Help
Senator,
with counseling services? Help with dealing with the issues that your services caused?
And there was really no answer. I hadn't even considered it. And then he got into, maybe it should come out of your own pocket. And then Josh Hawley got Zuckerberg to do something that was pretty damn amazing. It was better than any circus trick I've ever seen.
Let me ask you this. There's families of victims here today. Have you apologized to the victims? Would you like to do so now?
Well,
they're here. You're on national television. Would you like now to apologize to the victims who have been harmed by your product? Show them the pictures. Would you like to apologize for what you've done to these good people?
I'm sorry for everything that you have all gone through. It's terrible. No one should have to go through the things that your families have suffered. And this is why we invest so much and are going to continue doing industry-leading efforts to make sure that no one has to go through the types of things that your families have had to suffer.
So he actually stood and faced toward the audience, and some of them holding up pictures of their child that either lost or that had been a victim of a pedophile. And he starts stammering some apology. And, of course, when he came back to the compensation issue, no. I don't want to go down that road. And the apology was kind of half-baked, in my opinion. But he got him to stand and turn and face the accusers. Good. He also had to turn around then and had facing tough questions from Texas Congressman Cruz.
Social media is a very powerful tool. But we're here because every parent I know, and I think every parent in America, is terrified about the garbage that is directed at our kids. I have 2 teenagers at home, and the phones they have are portals to predators, to viciousness, to bullying, to self-harm. And each of your companies could do a lot more to prevent it. Mr. Zuckerberg, in June of 2023, the Wall Street Journal reported that Instagram's recommendation systems were actively connecting pedophiles to accounts that were advertising the sale of child sexual abuse material. In many cases, those accounts appeared to be run by underage children themselves, often using code words and emojis to advertise illicit material. In other cases, the accounts included indicia that the victim was being sex trafficked.
In the show. So we have an issue there, and their own science and their studies showing it. But again, Senator Cruz pointing out, where are your guardrails?
But what was particularly concerning about the Wall Street Journal expose was the degree to which Instagram's own algorithm was promoting the discoverability of victims for pedophiles seeking child abuse material. In other words, this material wasn't just living on the dark corners of Instagram. Instagram was helping pedophiles find it by promoting graphic hashtags, including hashtag pedwhore and hashtag preteen sex, to potential buyers. Instagram also displayed the following warning screen to individuals who were searching for child abuse material. These results may contain images of child sexual abuse. And then you gave users 2 choices. Get resources or see results anyway. Mr. Zuckerberg, what the hell were you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, really. If you say it may contain basic material you shouldn't even be watching, but we'll tell you how to get it anyway. Let's continue that with Senator Cruz.
Mr. Zuckerberg, what the hell were you thinking?
All right, Senator. The basic science behind that is that when people are searching for something that is problematic, it's often helpful to, rather than just blocking it, to help direct them towards something that that could be helpful for getting them to get help.
In what, I understand get resources. In what sane universe is there a link for see results anyway?
Well, because we might be wrong. We try to trigger this warning, or we tried to, when we think that there's any chance that the results.
Okay, you might be wrong. Let me ask you, how many times was this warning screen displayed?
I don't know, but the
you don't know. Why don't you know?
I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. But
well, you know what, Mr. Zuckerberg? It's interesting you say you don't know it off the top of your head, because I asked it in June of 2023 in an oversight letter, and your company refused to answer. Will you commit right now to within 5 days answering this question for this committee?
We'll follow up on that.
Is that a yes? Not a will follow up. I know how lawyers write statements saying we're not going to answer. Will you tell us how many times this warning screen was displayed? Yes or no?
Senator, I'll personally look into it. I'm not sure if we have.
Okay, so you're refusing to answer that.
I'll look into it, but yes or no? Yes or no? Hey, Zuck, let me help you out here. I know you're a bright, intelligent guy, or supposedly. You made way more money than I'll ever think of having, and I could care less. But when he says it's a yes or no question, you have two options. Yes, no. Not start filibustering that, well, we're doing everything we can to be working around it and so forth. Now, the CEO of TikTok was also there. We're going to let you hear Senator Cruz go after him later. But I got to tell you, this display, as we were watching it, was constantly being put in front of our American people.
How many times did an Instagram user who got this warning that you're seeing images of child sexual abuse, how many times did that user click on see results anyway? I want to see that.
Senator, I'm not sure if we stored that, but I'll personally look into this and we'll follow up after.
And what follow-up did Instagram do when you have a potential pedophile clicking on, I'd like to see child porn? What did you do next when that happened?
Senator, I think that an important piece of context here is that any context that we think is child sexual
Mr. Zuckerberg,
abuse,
that's called a question. What did you do next when someone clicked, you may be getting child sexual abuse images, and they click, see results anyway? What was your next step? You said you might be wrong. Did anyone examine, was it in fact child sexual abuse material? Did anyone report that user? Did anyone go and try to protect that child? What did you do next?
Senator, we take down anything that we think is sexual abuse material on the service, and we do.
Did anyone verify whether it was in fact child sexual abuse material?
Senator, I don't know if every single search result we're following up on, but
did you report the people who wanted it?
Senator, do you want me to answer your question?
Yeah, I want you to answer the question I'm asking. Did you report the people who click see results anyway?
That's probably one of the factors that we use in reporting. And in general, I mean, we've reported more people and done more reports like this to NCMEC, the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children, than any other company in the industry. We proactively go out of our way across our services to do this, and have made, I think it's more than 26 million reports, which is more than the whole rest of the industry combined.
Well, that's just great. That's just great. The TikTok interview will be coming up later, but first I want you to hear from a 14-year-old lecturing her school board. Lock and load. Ready on the right.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
Question: do you know what vermiculite is? It is an insulation in the attics of hundreds of thousands of homes and public buildings. Looks like kitty litter, but often contains asbestos. Wellington Environmental is the largest company in the Midwest that can remove that hazard for you. Wellington has what is called the General, a powerful industrial vacuum that can suck vermiculite out of the attic. Hang on, there's something else you should know. Many of you might qualify for up to a $4,000 rebate. You should at least contact Wellington to see if you qualify. And here's something else. Wellington arrives at the time they give you, not sometime within 4 hours. 314-644-4930. 644-4930. WellingtonSTL.com. WellingtonSTL.com. Wellington Environmental. Your world. Cleaner, better, safer. And be well with Wellington.
Talk radio made in St. Louis.
Very excited for what you guys are doing for the St. Louis community.
For St. Louis.
Relevant local talk.
Saying what we are thinking.
This is News Talk STL.
You guys are awesome. I love you. And it's a tremendous honor to be on the station.
News, analysis, and opinion.
Thanks for covering the local angle.
People, this is America.
We better open our eyes.
Really local, really good.
News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1 and newstalkstl.com.
As a truck driver, I've learned how important road safety is. I know that large trucks need more time and room to stop. That's why I always hang back and follow other vehicles at a safe distance. Everyone can help keep our roads safe. Next time you're driving, try to remember to always give trucks extra space when you merge in front of them. Let's all plan to share the road safely. Learn how at www.sharetheroadsafely.gov.
Hey St. Louis, my name is Rob Carter. My new primetime show will explore the collaboration between corrupt media and our corrupted political system. From manipulated elections, open borders, mandated medicines, and unconstitutional lockdowns, what is going on? The Rob Carter Show. Let's talk about it on The Rob Carter Show. Join me weeknights from 8 to 10 p.m. on News Talk STL.
Rob Carter, live and local, weeknights at 8 on News Talk STL. This is News Talk STL.
Well, they used to make a living off of bathtub gin. When the hippie showed up, the weed was in. Well, they profit off of weakness and they always have. Now meth is a recipe for cold hard cash. Something's cooking and it just ain't right. Hell's Kitchen gonna burn tonight.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
With these types of salaries, parents should expect extremely high proficiency scores and academic excellence. But that's not the case. More money does not equal better education. Proficiency scores are as low as 20% in this district. Chippewa Valley High School is ranked 384th out of 735 Michigan high schools. In 2018, your average standard score was 59.42, but went down to 21.68 last year. Your Michigan State percentile is only 18%, meaning 82% of Michigan students scored better on standardized tests than those at Chippewa Valley.
Chippewa Valley is where this young lady, 14 years old, is addressing the school board. She's done her homework. Believe me, she's done her homework. And she's talking about, again, you guys think paying more money to staff is going to make us smarter. That doesn't work. She said, with these types of salaries, and I'll quote some of those for you in a moment, parents should expect extremely high proficiency scores and academic excellence. But more money does not equal better education. My God, it took a 14-year-old to say something that is so true to this school board, Chippewa Valley, in their state of Michigan. And again, she said the high school is ranked third. Proficiency scores are as low as 20% in the district. And we're ranked, I say third, you're ranked 84th out of 735 Michigan high schools. You are 84th. If it's as bad as it is here, how bad could it be for those below 84? And again, pointing out the Michigan State percentile is only 18%, meaning 82% of Michigan students score better on their standardized test than those here at Chippewa Valley. What is her point? Well, she's talking about how long a lot of these people have been on the board and things have not gotten better. She's also questioning the validity of even having the school board principal involved in this because he's not elected position. She is identifying him directly as the superintendent. I said principal, but he's the superintendent. But here's what she points out. Every supervisor in this Chippewa Valley School District, according to the website of the school, every single teacher in that district is making well over $100,000 per year. Well, I'm happy for them. I think good teachers should be more than adequately reimbursed. They earn it. They work hard at it. Sometimes they dig into their own pockets to help buy supplies for the schools and the kids. I applaud all of that if they're doing the job. And I'm sure in the midst of these, there are a lot of them that are doing the best they can. But you get 2 or 3 in different classes, and they're not really caring or apathetic or even just phoning it in on a daily basis. Everything that the other teachers are achieving is a wash. And caught in the middle of it are the children and their education. She then points out that every school counselor is making $100,000 a year. Every principal is making $100,000 a year. I'm listening to these numbers and I'm thinking, why do you even want to go from teacher to all this? But every coordinator, every director, every supervisor, all making $100,000 a year. They're probably that and then some. All of this is just according to the website. But the superintendent makes $400,000 per year. And as she was pointing out, in addition to those numbers I just stated, she's talking about the school superintendent. He said, the school board, she said, is a governing body of our district. And Mr. Roberts is only an advisor as board president. Your job is to preside and conduct these meetings, not the superintendent. You shouldn't even be speaking unless giving a report on district issues or a question is posed to you. She adds that some of you have been on this board for years and things have gotten worse in this district. And one thing that's remained status since 2011, the superintendent. And she adds this, why is every parent in this district not asking the board, why is this guy still here? That 14-year-old had the audience totally enraptured, and a lot of them got some information they just didn't know from the mouths of babes, correct? Hey, as you know, John Kerry is no longer going to be the White House climate czar. He's going to step aside because he wants to rejoin the staff of Joe Biden, putting all of his efforts into getting Biden back into the White House. Kerry is 80, but he's going to help the 81-year-old Biden get back into the White House. I have nothing wrong with the age, and Kerry is very sharp and astute, certainly compared to Biden. Well, so they're going to walk away from having a climate czar or whatever you want to call it, diplomat? No. They're not going to do that. Come on. The wheels are in motion. White House advisor John Podesta. You've heard that name before. John Podesta will be stepping up. The White House Chief of Staff issued a written statement stating, we need to keep meeting the gravity of this moment. And there's no one better than John Podesta. John has and will continue to be at the helm of driving the implementation of the most significant climate law in history. Till we're all frozen, starving, and dead. Oh, I'm sorry, that wasn't in the statement. I think I was thinking out loud. Forgive me. That was not in the statement. Kerry, of course, was instrumental in delivering the 2015 Paris Climate Agreement. Under then President Barack Obama, Kerry was Secretary of State. And since then, he's dedicated his life to flying around the globe telling world powers, including China, you need to cut down those emissions. And you know what China says? They smile. We'd like some tea. And they keep digging more coal mines. They're not shutting down anything. They're counting on us doing it, so we will be cold and freezing when they decide to make their move. Kerry did take time to congratulate Podesta in a Twitter, and he says, and this is from the tweet from John Kerry, "We've made historic progress these last 3 years, and I know that in his new role as Biden's senior advisor for international climate change, John Podesta will continue to grow the momentum that we've had previously and most recently at Dubai." Podesta joined the Biden administration, by the way, in September 2022. You know what he does right now? He oversees Biden's Inflation Reduction Comedy Act. My mind is slipping in here. I'm sorry. The real title is Biden's Inflation Reduction Act. This sounds better with the word comedy in it, because that's what it is. Of course, it's devoted billions of dollars to speed the nation's shift to clean energy, including wind and solar. And, of course, before that, he was a top climate advisor to former President Obama. And he also, let me remind you of this, John Podesta was chairing Hillary Clinton's 2016 presidential campaign, and had also served as White House chief of staff under Bill Clinton. So he's been around a while. It's a good old boys network. But one thing about Podesta stands out to me, despite everything I just read to you, is the night that Hillary lost to Donald Trump. All of her supporters were gathered waiting for a victory yell and cry for her to come on the stage and, "We won. We defeated that mean old man." They were talking about Trump, obviously, not Biden. But there was no big celebration that night for Hillary Clinton. She did call Trump and concede the election in somewhat of a classy way, I guess. And in his classy way, he said, "That's all behind us. Let's all work together and build a better nation. Make America great again." That moment, they started going after him. No honeymoon for this president. But John Podesta was given the duty to stand at the front of the firing line. All these folks who had waited until the wee hours of the morning to have Hillary come address them and thank them for their hard work and effort, even if it failed short. She did not show up. Probably because she's throwing a fit in the back room or guzzling down. I don't know. I mean, what would you do if you had everything pinned on you? We were going to be coronated and suddenly they whipped it away from you, in her view. She sent Podesta out to address all these weeping, crying, shriveling, whining. My God, how could it happen? He said, we're going to call it a night. We're still looking at things. Tomorrow will be a new day, and in the brightness of the day, we'll have a better picture of what's going on. He already knew they were beat. But he was smart enough. You send me out here to face them, I'm not going to say that to them. Coming up, what we're going to be doing or not doing when it comes to dealing with the border.
You can connect with Larry on Twitter at LarryConnersUSA.
I'm always glad to have new sponsors, but I have turned some down. See, I only endorse clients if I believe in them. And I've been a spokesman for John Beal for 10 years. Through those years, listeners said they went with John Beal because they trusted me. And just recently, a woman named Mary wrote, "We got a John Beal roof based on your recommendation." Thank you, Mary, and all the others for calling John Beal. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF.
No matter how large or small your digging project may be, no matter how urban or rural, you must always call 811 before any digging project. 811 is our national one-call number, alerting your local utility companies to come out and mark any lines they have near your dig site. So before you do this or this, make sure you do this. For digging projects big or small, make the call to 811. Brought to you by Common Ground Alliance.
Sometimes you want to do something extra special for someone. Vincent's Jewelers can help you. Maybe you want to do something for yourself. Mark a date, something you accomplished. It doesn't have to be anything really expensive, but it has to mean something now and for the future. Vincent's, locally owned, just ask for the chance to work with you, as they have with me. On Olive, just east of 270. Every day, new specials at vincentsjewelers.com or Vincent's Facebook.
The United States Deputy Sheriff's Association is a national nonprofit and the largest non-governmental provider of services to law enforcement. The USDSA assists city, county, state, and federal agencies with free safety equipment donations and officer survival training, along with cash donations to families of law enforcement officers who perished in the line of duty, a citizen awareness program, and more. For more information on United States Deputy Sheriff's Association, please visit usdeputy.org.
One of the 5 most traumatic experiences in life is moving. I can assure you that McGuire Moving can help ease that pressure. Moving into a new home or a new business, locally, internationally. McGuire is rated number 1. More than 80 years of experience. Free estimate? Call McGuire, 314-241-0600. 241-0600. McGuireMoving.com.
This is News Talk STL.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
This bill will not pass. It's dead on arrival in the House. And I said to my colleagues, all right, if it's not going to pass the House, what the hell are we doing? Why are we giving Democrats an excuse? Because you know what Chuck Schumer's doing? You know what Joe Biden's doing? You know what every Democrat running for re-election is doing? They're saying, well, gosh, we would have secured the border, but the Republicans won't pass our bogus bill that does nothing to secure the border. That is just dumb. It's political malpractice.
It is malpractice, but they're already playing the game. In fact, I've got a piece right here in front of me. That was, of course, Senator Ted Cruz of Texas talking about how this bill that they want to push through is just out of control. GOP Senator Cassidy talking to Trump saying, don't be ignorant, read the border bill. He is a Louisiana, and he is appearing on CNN, which they love the kind of remark when he said, don't be ignorant. During a campaign speech Saturday, Trump had said, as leader of our party, there is zero chance I will support this horrible open borders betrayal of America. I'll fight it all the way. A lot of the senators are trying to say, respectfully, they're blaming it on me. I say, that's okay. Go ahead and please blame me. Please do. Well, a reporter, in talking to Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana, said top Senate negotiators told me earlier today criticisms of this bill would not clamp down on border crossings is simply wrong. And then asked, so the former president calls this a betrayal. Is that it? Would you characterize that? Senator James Langford. This copy got fouled up. I just realized this. It was quoting Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana of making that statement. Let me look at this copy. No, this was, well, Cassidy was involved in it, but she was asking Senator James Langford, Republican of Oklahoma. And he said, it's certainly not a betrayal. Actually, we've got to deal with issues in law. That's how we actually deal with things in America. And Senator Cassidy asked Langford, does he have access to the bill? Cassidy added, it has been released. How does he know it's a betrayal if he hasn't read it? I mean, don't be ignorant. Read the bill. Well, I haven't read the bill either. I don't know how many who have, but I will tell you this. The word had come out early that the point was going to be that they were going to make sure that it would include basically a provision where 5,000 illegals would be let into the nation on a daily basis. 5,000 a day. That would end up being 1 million plus by the time the end of the year. So Senator Mike Johnson is now rushing through a tax bill, despite the objections from both conservative and centrist factions of the Republican Party. This involves a child tax credit, and this is underway as we're also looking at a compromise on border security and foreign aid. All of this ties together in a way because they're trying to say, let's get these low-profile things out, get them passed and done. But he's also been recognizing that what is proposed by those who are willing to go along with the Senate is we will willingly accept 5,000 illegals into our nation on a daily basis. Now, I say illegal. At that point, you could call them an immigrant if you're letting them in and processing them, and that was the intent anyway. But what are you going to do about all the ones that want to come through the other processes? They claim the asylum system, our immigration system is broken. This is going to break it more. This is a Trojan horse by any look, by any way you see it. And let me give you an example of how the Democrats want to play this. A majority of House Democrats voted against legislation this week, that would impose new criminal penalties for illegals if they're leading Border Patrol agents on often deadly high-speed crashes. That's right, they're illegal. They come across, here comes the Border Patrol to apprehend them, and they rush off. If you catch them, don't you think you should charge them? Hell yes. Well, Tuesday, 56 House Democrats joined 215 House Republicans to pass the Agent Raul Gonzalez Officer Safety Act, which would establish new criminal penalties for illegals and others driving vehicles trying to evade Border Patrol agents. And in fact, the Vice President of the National Border Patrol Council said, we appreciate the House Republicans' efforts to secure our lawless, chaotic border and protect the men and women on the front line and make our community safer. Illegal aliens convicted of fleeing from Border Patrol agents, leaning on this, would be ineligible to claim asylum and would be immediately deported. But 154 House Democrats voted against it. That includes the party leadership. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, Minority Whip Clark. That legislation I read, Raul Humberto Gonzalez, Jr., it has his name on it. He's a father of two who was killed just before Christmas in 2022. He was on a high-speed chase trying to catch a bunch of illegals who crossed the border. Senator Mike Johnson said, we stand shoulder to shoulder with every law enforcement officer working to secure the border. And yet you look at this, 154 House Democrats didn't think his life was that valuable, I guess. Because they don't want to prosecute and deport anybody who leads Border Patrol agents on a high-speed chase. Don't even bother looking for any sense of common sense. Governor DeSantis announcing that he will be deploying members of his National Guard to help the Texas National Guard. He said, we want to help stop the invasion of the southern border. We're going to give 1,000 of our National Guard members to the control of Texas, whatever they need. We'll help put up additional barriers, including razor wire. And he added, we don't have a country, we don't have a border. We all agree with that. Well, I say the sane people agree with it. And even those on the other side, I'm asking you to do something. Do you think when you go in your house and you close the door and put the garage down, that's your secure environment, right? You probably lock the door. Things have changed since the days of the 50s. You lock the door. You make sure all the alarms are set. Well, if you really don't think border crossing is that big of a deal, again, leave your garage door open at night. Leave lights on so they can see their way in. Leave your front door not just unlocked, but open, so they won't have to break it to get in, and let people come and go as they want. Maybe mess with your children or sleep with them, whatever. Would that change your mind? You know it would, but you don't want to admit it, do you? In the meantime, in Chicago, that city-sponsored facility, according to one Chicago TV station, conditions at this shelter were revealed in emails sent to the Chicago mayor back in October. And then in December, a migrant child died because he got sick at the shelter. Several have gotten sick since. They may not have been in good shape to begin with. If it's cold weather and who knows what all else could be involved. But when they actually went to do an investigation, it is infested with rats and cockroaches, rotting food, garbage, water quality issues, open sewage. In Chicago, and a shelter that they put up to take care of these people who came here seeking a better life. The TV station that was focusing on it filed a Freedom of Information Act for emails, but got documents that were entirely redacted, so they could not really tell much about it. But they say the redacted parts allege the shelter had insufficient bathrooms, exposed pipes with raw sewage, cockroach infestation, a possible outbreak of illness with many being sick, insufficient provision of meals and water. Now, I'm wondering how many are there thinking, I made the trip and paid the cartels to get me into this? Well, of course, you know what the Democrats' answer is. Give us more money. You give us more money, we can fix it. And Joe Biden still says, if I had more money, I could close the border. No, he won't. Yesterday, we had execs of major social media firms in front of the Senate. And Senator Cruz unleashed an attack against the CEO of TikTok.
Now, you said earlier, and I wrote this down, we have not been asked for any data by the Chinese government, and we have never provided it. I'm going to tell you, and I told this when you and I met last week in my office, I do not believe you. And I'll tell you, the American people don't either. If you look at what is on TikTok in China, you are promoting to kids science and math videos, educational videos, and you limit the amount of time kids can be on TikTok. In the United States, you are promoting to kids self-harm videos and anti-Israel propaganda. Why is there such a dramatic difference?
Senator, that is just not accurate. There's
not a difference between what kids see in China and what kids see here?
Senator, TikTok is not available in China. It's a separate experience there. What I'm saying is...
But you have a company that is essentially the same, except it promotes beneficial materials instead of harmful materials.
That is not true.
Well, I'm like the senator. I don't believe him. The other part of the question is the stuff that the senator said is being shown locally, anti-Semitism and graphic pictures. I'll probably agree they're not being shown in China. Well, maybe the anti-Semitism is. But they're obviously being shown here through TikTok. What are they doing about it? That was the whole focus of the entire hearing yesterday, trying to find out, here are your issues. You say you're going to deal with them. You haven't done with them. Now what are you going to do? It just went on and on. these social media giants believe they, and they're the first to say no one's above the law, but they believe they are. That's why they want protection from lawsuits in case something posts something on there to be libelous or slander. Not us. We didn't have any control over it being posted. Once we saw it, we took it down. We won't let them back on. But you can't sue us because it happened one time. And they know the damage they're doing. And yet, you're going to hear a mea culpa, very much as we've heard from those who were all about pushing COVID and mask mandates and that we've got to keep kids home and out of the school. And most parents were telling them, and even educators, this is wrong. This is going to hurt these kids, and they're learning. And they said, well, we're following the science. We know better. And since then, they realized, no, that did hurt them. And will you forgive us? Will you forgive us that we did that to your children because we thought we were doing what was best in their interest? No, I'm not going to forgive you because you were repeatedly told it would damage them. And you make up science and tell us to follow it. There was another very interesting event, and I mentioned this earlier in the hour, but this is one of those that you want to buy a second ticket for some things you see, right? You think, man, I got to go see that again. Well, I'm going to give it for you absolutely free. This is when Missouri Senator Hawley has been going after Zuckerberg and all the things that they have done and screwed up with their platform and basically denied people, but more importantly, how they have allowed that platform to become not only an invite for pedophiles, but an encouragement and basically subject young children to the lust and possible actual contact from pedophiles. And Senator Hawley knows that the audience is packed with parents of a lot of those same kids, and they brought pictures of their kids, how sweet and innocent they were before they got basically into the hands of a pedophile through social media. Listen what happened next.
Let me ask you this. There's families of victims here today. Have you apologized to the victims? Would you like to do so now? Well, they're here. You're on national television. Would you like now to apologize to the victims who have been harmed by your product? Show them the pictures. Would you like to apologize for what you've done to these good people?
I'm sorry for everything that you have all gone through. It's terrible. No one should have to go through the things that your families have suffered. And this is why we invest so much and are going to continue doing industry-leading efforts to make sure that no one has to go through the types of things that your families have had to suffer.
He actually had to stand and turn away from the senators and address the crowd because Hawley said, you're here on national TV. You want to take the opportunity? And he thought, oh, I guess I better do this one. But nobody believed a word he said. And Hawley also questioned about, what about compensation? What? Compensation. You're going to do anything to pay these families for what they've suffered because of your social media company and their children? Well, we haven't. How about out of your own pay? How about you take some of those billions you make and pay compensation to them out of your money, out of your pocket? I'll cut to the chase for you. The answer is no, not going to, unless they're forced to. Great display yesterday. And the fact that Zuckerberg had to stand and face them and even mumble an insincere apology. I love it. Absolutely love it. And that's why you also love this program. We bring you stuff like that and more. We'll be back here tomorrow. Remember our pledge, one nation under God.
You can follow Larry on Larry Connors USA Facebook. Larry Connors USA Facebook. This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.